It's about the coast. It's about to get very cold. Charlie stepped onto the porch, Rex flanking him. The Atlantic wind roared behind them, a chorus of voices from the past and a warning for the future. Chapter 8. The Heart's Anchor. The confrontation with Miller had been a revelation. Todd was dead, found in his cell, an apparent suicide that Charlie knew was anything but. The ring was larger than they had imagined. A shadow government of sorts that used the rugged, isolated coast of Newfoundland as its playground. But for now, the immediate threat had receded into the fog. Charlie sat on the edge of the pier, his legs dangling over the water. Sarah sat beside him, their shoulders touching. The silence between them was no longer filled with the tension of a case, but with the quiet understanding of two people who had survived a storm. Miller said something before he left, Charlie said, staring at the horizon. He said that in this life, you either have an anchor or you get swept away. Sarah looked at him, her eyes soft. And do you have one, Charlie? He turned to her, the honesty of the moment stripping away his armor. I think I do, but I've been too afraid to admit it, afraid that if I acknowledged it, the world would find a way to take it away. Sarah reached out, taking his hand. Her palm was warm against his, a stark contrast to the biting sea air. The world will try, Charlie. That's what the world does. But that's why we fight. He leaned in, the distance between them vanishing. When he kissed her, it wasn't a cinematic moment of grand passion. It was a quiet, desperate affirmation of life. It was salt and tea and the promise of a tomorrow that wasn't guaranteed, but was worth every scar. Rex, sensing the shift in the air, let out a soft whine of approval and rested his head on their joined hands. Epilogue. The harbor lights. Street Johns was a city of ghosts, but it was also a city of light. As the harbor lights began to twinkle, reflected in the dark water, Charlie Hudson felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He knew the part 2 of his life wasn't going to be easy. But as he walked back toward his trailer with Sarah on one side and Rex on the other, he realized he wasn't walking alone. Coming for dinner tomorrow? He asked Sarah as she reached her car. Only if you're not cooking, she teased, her eyes sparkling. And Charlie? Yeah, wear the sling. Just for one more day. He watched her drive away, the red taillights disappearing into the mist. He looked down at Rex, whose eyes were bright with intelligence and a fierce, unwavering loyalty. Come on, partner, Charlie said, his voice echoing in the quiet night. Let's go home. The Cold Coast Chronicles would continue, but for tonight, the heart had found its harbor. The end, for now. Echoes of the Atlantic. A tale of valor and longing. Prologue. The salt in the air. Street Johns, Newfoundland, was a city built on the edge of the world, where the Atlantic's breath was a constant companion, chilly, salt-laden, and heavy with secrets. Detective Charlie Hudson stood on the balcony of his home, looking out over the harbor as the morning fog rolled in like a slow-moving ghost. Beside him, Rex, his German Shepherd partner, sat with ears pricked, sensing the shift in the wind before Charlie did. The city was beautiful in its ruggedness, but for Charlie, it was a place of shadows. He had dedicated his life to chasing those shadows away. But lately, the silence of his trailer felt a little louder, the space beside him in the car a little emptier. He often found himself staring at the forensic reports longer than necessary, his mind drifting not to the evidence, but to the woman who had prepared them. Big day, partner? Charlie murmured, scratching Rex behind the ears. Rex let out a soft huff, a sound of agreement. Today wasn't just another day at the Major Crimes Unit. It was a day where the line between his professional duty and his personal heart would begin to blur. The Atlantic whispered of a storm coming, and Charlie knew that, in Street Johns, storms rarely arrived alone. Chapter 1. The Vanishing. The morning began with a scream, not a literal one, but the kind that echoes through a police station when a child goes missing. It was a cold, sharp Tuesday. Megan Schaefer, a prominent lawyer at Wilkins Law, had vanished without a trace. Her office was a shrine to order, but her life had become a chaotic puzzle of broken relationships and corporate secrets. But she wasn't the only one. Emma Jansen, a mother with a weary face and eyes full of terror, stood in the precinct lobby, holding a crumpled drawing. Her 12-year-old son, Brian, who was on the autism spectrum, had disappeared from their sidewalk while he was supposed to be drawing. Charlie met Sarah Truong in the bullpen. Sarah was the lead forensic scientist, a woman whose brilliance was matched only by the quiet elegance she carried. Every time she walked into a room, the air seemed to settle, becoming clearer, sharper. When their eyes met, there was a flicker of something, a shared understanding that went deeper than their badges. "We have 2 missing persons, Charlie," Sarah said, her voice steady but her brow furrowed. "Megan Schaefer and young Brian." The mother found this on the pavement. She held up a sketch Brian had made. It was incredible. A detailed drawing of a woman being forced into a white van. The perspective was raw, captured from a low angle, as if the world were viewed through a lens of pure, unfiltered observation. Brian's a witness, Charlie realized, his heart sinking. He didn't just wander off. He saw the abduction, and now the abductor has him, or he's hiding because he's terrified of what he saw. "He communicates through his art," Sarah explained softly, her hand lingering near Charlie's sleeve. "Emma says he rarely speaks. He's overwhelmed, Charlie. If he's out there alone, the sensory overload of the city could be as dangerous as the kidnapper." They searched for hours, the fog thickening. They found Brian tucked behind a rusted dumpster in an alleyway 3 blocks from his home. He was shivering, clutching a box of colored pencils as if they were his only lifeline to reality. He wouldn't let anyone near him until Rex stepped forward. The dog moved with a gentle, intuitive grace, ignoring the sirens and the shouting officers. Rex simply sat down and laid his head on the boy's lap. The tension in Brian's small frame melted. "Look at that," Sarah whispered, standing close to Charlie. Her shoulder brushed his, and for a moment, the chaos of the investigation faded. "Rex knows exactly what he needs. He doesn't need words. He needs presence. I think we all need a friend like Rex sometimes," Charlie said, his voice dropping an octave. He looked at Sarah, the streetlights catching the highlights in her dark hair. He wanted to say more, to tell her how much he relied on her, not just for her DNA results, but for the way she anchored him in the middle of the storm. But the radio crackled to life, shattering the moment. "Detective Hudson, we found a body in a rental van near Drovers Road. It's Jamie Bregman, Megan's ex." Chapter 2: The Web of Deceit. The murder of Jamie Bregman changed the stakes. Jamie hadn't been the kidnapper. He had been a victim of the same darkness that took Megan. As Charlie and Rex worked the scene, Sarah was back in the lab, sifting through the digital debris of Wilkins Law. She discovered a series of irregularities in the firm's escrow accounts. When Mikey content, millions were missing. Jamie had been the point person, but he was being set up as a scapegoat. "It's Todd," Charlie said, slamming his hand on the desk as they reviewed the findings. Todd, the senior partner, had been acting the part of the grieving mentor. He stole the money, killed Jamie to silence him, and kidnapped Megan to make it look like a lover's quarrel gone wrong. The rescue of Megan Schaefer was a blur of high-speed chases and Rex's unerring nose. They tracked her to an abandoned machine shop in the Golds. When they broke down the door, Rex was the first one in, pinning the hired muscle, Earl Blackburn, before he could reach his weapon. Later that night, the precinct was quiet. Megan was safe, and Brian was back in his mother's arms. Charlie found Sarah in the break room, staring out at the rain. "You did good today, Charlie," she said, turning to him with a tired smile. "We did good," he corrected. He stepped closer, the space between them charged with an unspoken tension. "I was thinking, maybe after this is all settled, we could actually finish a conversation without a crime scene getting in the way?" Sarah laughed. A warm, melodic sound. Chapter 3: The Watch and the Waves. The piece was short-lived. The heart of the drama shifted to the harbor when a new case landed on their desks. The murder of Jake Kaufman. Kaufman was a high-stakes investor, a man who treated people like chess pieces and the world like his personal playground. He was found on his luxury yacht, Best Kind, pinned to a mahogany wall by a professional-grade spear gun. Charlie and Sarah boarded the vessel. The air was thick with the smell of expensive champagne, expensive cigars, and the metallic, unmistakable